Hey everybody, this is Kodak here, and today we are talking about how Yu-Gi-Oh! Gets new players to buy their starter decks, and we are instead going to be talking about Structured Deck Power Code Link. And just a disclaimer, just like the Magic the Gathering one, this isn't really going to be a deck breakdown of Power Code Link, it is going to be an analysis of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Entices people to buy its cards through the use of its starter deck design. Now, here's the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that it is currently the cheapest starter deck out there at only $10 a piece. It is also the most no-frills and straightforward of the bunch. It doesn't even really have terribly dramatic packaging on the front. It's incredibly blunt, almost refreshingly so. It's like, hey, yeah, it's that show where the kids with the crazy hair play card games on motorbikes. Oh my god, 5Ds was what, like 10 years ago? Man, I feel old. But yeah, the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it doesn't really need to have very much going on in its structure deck design because so much of the presentation and lore comes through its TV show, its cartoon show, where they have the people, you know, playing with the cards. Like, this is the main character of the current show, Varain. So that's really all a Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck needs to have. It's like, hey, a picture of a character I like and a picture of a couple of cool monsters he's used on the show. That's really all you need for selling this structure deck. And it is also oriented towards people who are fans of the game for a long time, because as part of its bluntness on the back, it's actually the only starter deck that doesn't have a window inside, too. I remember some of the earlier ones actually had the window, like the old Yugi and Kaiba starter decks had like the window with like the Blue Eyes White Dragon inside of it. That was so cool. But one thing this deck does is the single most prominent thing on the back of it isn't like these pictures of these characters or pictures of the cards or like a big picture of that main character, or even this lore that's written up here in this really difficult to read font. I don't know why they went with this font and this style. They did white text bordered with white color. That's really difficult to read. I mean, I can kind of make it out, but not really from here looking this far away. But the thing that is most prominent on the back of this deck box is the list. This, unlike the Magic the Gathering deck, lists the cards you get on the back. It like I said, it's very, very no-nonsense. It's almost refreshingly blunt, almost. It's very much no-nonsense in its delivery. It's like, hey, here's the box, here's what you're getting. You're getting the 38 common cards, the 3 super rare cards, and the 2 ultra rare cards, even though it's a starter deck, which means every card in it is automatically a common. A beginner's guide and a double-sided deluxe game mat. So, like I said, very no frills. There aren't really going to be like any card boxes or special tokens or even bonus booster packs inside here. So that's pretty much what you're getting, is blunt and straightforward. You're getting exactly what it says on the box. And this, I think, appeals more to veteran players, but not really so much to new players, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually does have two different things. They refer to stuff like Power Code Link as a structure deck, which is meant to be a more coherent design, falling in place more like the Magic the Gathering deck. The starter deck, on the other hand, I think is intended more for beginners, but here's the thing, is the starter decks that Konami puts out are actually really weird, because while the starter deck for Link Strike did introduce some of the new toys, particularly the Link monsters and some of the Cyburst cards, it, for the most part, is a random hodgepodge of staple cards like Battle Fader or Mirror Force or Mystical Space Typhoon, cards that, you know, basically everybody should have in their collection. And here's the thing, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card game that does not use set rotation, the only one of the big three that doesn't. What Pokemon and Magic do is each card set that they put out has a shelf life of about 1.5 to 2 years. And what happens is, after that point, the card set is rotated out of the standard gameplay format. Of course, they've also come up with stuff like Extended that prolongs that life even more. But basically, those cards get, you know, put on the shelf, and new cards are used and encouraged to buy. This basically is designed to prevent the environment from stagnating. Yu-Gi-Oh! Approaches it very, very differently. Instead, they maintain a list of restricted and banned cards, which means that it's very good chance that some of you people who are watching right now might not have even been alive yet when the first Mirror Force card was printed. So, while I do appreciate that Konami feels it's important for players to be able to get their hands on these kinds of important and iconic cards, I can't help but realize that as far as decks go, this thing is kind of a weird hodgepodge. Like, you have strange cards like Beast King Barbaros, which is a bit complicated to understand, and the card Cyber Dragon, which special summons itself, but so much of the rest of the deck are cards that essentially have slightly twisted versions of the same effect. It feels more like a random gaggle of staple cards rather than a cohesive deck, which I don't think would give new players the best impression of how the game tends to play out. I mean, don't get me wrong, the starter decks they had for Yugi and Kaiba when the game first came out were also very, very hodgepodgey, but they were also very, very simple. Like I said, this feels more like an excuse to just throw a bunch of staple cards together in one place and call it a day. It doesn't really feel like a good tool for teaching players the game. Maybe this sort of thing might have had a better name as, like, I don't know, a starters collection or something. Like if Konami deliberately put out a set of cards that said, hey, this is the perfect place to start. I mean, collection-wise, this is the perfect place to start. I don't know if it's a perfect place to start play-wise. So if you're really trying to get into Yu-Gi-Oh!, I'd advise getting a structure deck. Structure decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are actually very, very popular. Perhaps too popular. I remember there was a time where if you wanted to do well at local tournaments or even regional tournaments, all you did was bought 3 copies of the same structure deck, and you would have a pretty solid deck there because you'd have full play sets of everything that you would need to build a deck out of. And I don't know if that's true of this deck. It contains a lot of things that are clearly designed to use the Cyberse cards, and it definitely is meant to give more of a sense of cohesion in its deck design. I mean, I'll take a quick look at the cards inside, but this is probably something that'll give you a better feel for how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is meant to be played. But like I said, this is a deck more about presentation, if anything else. Like I said, very straightforward, not really that much art or lore presented on there. They're leaving that up to the show. Again, it's another deck box that you have to destroy in order to open, although I think I'd rather destroy this one from the bottom here. But yeah, taking a look inside, very, very basic, just kind of a plastic dump tray and the Power Code Link Beginner's Guide, which I assume teaches all of the same rules as the other ones. Yeah, it's pretty. It's the basic rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! I think at this point most people will kind of understand the rules because they watch the TV show. Although on the TV show they play with 4,000 life points instead of 8,000 life points because it's hard to get 4,000 life points into the game. But oh man, there are so many crazy rules. We got Link monsters, we got Pendulum, Xyz, Fusion, Ritual, Synchro. They've just gone kind of nuts with how a lot of these these things work, haven't it? And a lot of these actually look like rule books from the rules from the previous games. Like I know this was in the 5D starter deck. This was in the Xyz starter deck. Were these in the Pendulum starter deck? Yeah, I think they were. But anyway, moving on, we also have the structure deck, which actually has a list of cards on the top. It actually lists what's in here, so it has the deck and the beginner's guide, as well as a playmat. And like I said, the size of this box, I didn't really go over the size of the box. The thing about these boxes being this large, they used to just be large enough to hold the cards, but they had to get larger, partly because of Yu-Gi-Oh!, because it had to include these large playmats and rule books, and especially for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a very, very strict layout for how it plays. You only have so many monster zones and so many places to play cards, and now they've actually made the extra monster zone, so it's basically required to have a playmat to keep everything statted out. Pokemon only sort of needed a playmat. It just needed a bench for 5 Pokemon and a spot to put prize cards. It wasn't the ever-changing craziness that was Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially with how important monster placement is thanks to the use of the extra monster zone and link monsters. But what we have here is also a quick strategy guide on how you're supposed to play the deck. And like I said, this is something that I think is better for beginners. Not only do you have the rule book to teach you how to play, but you also have this guide here that says, see, hey, this is how this deck works. This is how it all cooperates. So you even though it's very, very no frills, you're getting the sort of complete package here in learning how to play, because not only is it teaching you how to play, it's teaching you specifically how to play this deck. And it would not surprise me, yeah, it has a few spots where it encourages you to find cards to improve it, although they have a banned one on here. Oh dear, Firewall Dragon, a card that I took one look at its effect and was like, wow, that would break the game. Turns out everybody agreed, and so did the people who made Yu-Gi-Oh!, so they banned it. But the rest of what we have in here, I'm not familiar with this. It says Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Links. It has a picture of Yugi and Jaden, or I think his name is Judo in Japanese. Does he know Judo or Kung Fu? I don't know. Is this something for, like, the online game? Let me see. They have download and duel now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Links. Okay, so this is probably like a code card to play it's either an ad or a code card. I'll find out when I open it. Like I said, no frills. Like this thing can sort of double as a deck box. Like it's just a tray. You can dump the cards in here if you don't need them, especially since it's sort of got this sort of concave angle to it, very easy to dump cards into. But because you have to destroy the box to open it up, not really ideal for card storage. So we have Power Code Talker on here, which is a Link monster. 3 monsters. You can target a face-up monster. Then we have Segmental Dragon. I don't know, the actually coloring the attribute symbols in, I thought that was something new. That's something new on Ultra Rares, if I remember right. That used to be what they would do for the Ultimate Rares. Sea Archiver, Flame Buffalo, and Lady Debug. Yeah, it's mostly Cyber's monster. There's a Fiend, that's something different. Machine, Beast Warrior. So yeah, it's clearly designed to be imperfect. That's how a good starter deck is. Like it has a lot of like Machine and Fiend and another copy of Effect Veiler that was in the starter deck as well. It has a lot of reprinted cards like Offerings to the Doomed, Forbidden Chalice, Scapegoat, Swords of Revealing Light, Reasoning. Like these, like Swords of Revealing Light and Reasoning. These are old cards. 1 for 1. That's legal again. It's a combination. That's what I think is so appealing about them, is that they are. It's a combination of both. It's a combination of both of both, you know, some new toys to play with, a lot more new toys to play with than with a normal deck, and some staple cards. A lot of really important cards, like Trap Stun is a good card, Call of the Haunted, a lot of really fun stuff. And I guess Land Farincus and Traffic Ghost are considered to be commons more than anything. Cyber's Link, 3 monsters. I guess because it has a lot of link points that point backwards, it's designed to allow you to summon a lot of things. Yeah, it's just an ad. I was wondering if it was it's just an ad for Dual Links thrown into the deck there. But yeah, very, very basic and straightforward deck, but unlike what they consider to be the starter deck, I think it's probably a lot better at teaching how the game is played by giving you not just an understanding of the rules, but an understanding of how this deck in particular works. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game that is currently all about archetypes, so the more lessons that this set here can teach about how those archetypes are supposed to work, the better. So, like I said, very, very, very no-frills presentation. It doesn't really have much beyond just the cards and teaching you how to play, and it doesn't really delve into the lore as much. But like I said, it doesn't really need to. It has the advantage of having a hit TV show to do all of that stuff for it. I don't think I would advise doing something as straightforward as this for anything other than something that has that kind of TV show support, which is a very, very limited number of things. Otherwise, I would try to have those sweeteners in there, like, I don't know, like a deck box, or preferably a booster pack. I know this thing doesn't come with a booster pack, but then again, it's more along the lines of a half deck. It doesn't face the limitations of games like Magic and Pokemon that have to have matching resource cards, so along with having a bunch of the new toys, it also has a lot of just random stuff that kind of works in the deck, and has some staple cards, so you can get a bit of the flavor out of here. I still worry that it affects the deck's synergy, although like I said, you're encouraged to buy multiple copies of the same deck. So yeah, that is a look at how Yu-Gi-Oh! Entices people to buy its starter deck. It counts on people to have seen the show first, and then just basically says, hey, we know what you want, here it is. So that's Yu-Gi-Oh! So I might do one on Pokemon later. Pokemon is a bit of an interesting thing to talk about, because I think out of the big 3, their delivery is by far the clumsiest. Anyway, until next time, this is Kodak signing off.